1930 Coney at Lex 59.
30 Whiskey Lexington 59th. That is a copy. Your next callback will be Times Square 40 seconds.
For Times Square.
Quincy calling at 42nd Street, Times Square.
Quincy, Times Square 42nd. That is a copy. Push your express line for your next callback 14th Street, Union Square.
Copy for Union Square 14th Street.
1942, requesting lineup out of Ditmars.
Quincy, Nancy, to me, Departed Story at Ditmars. Your next callback will be Broadway.
Copy, Broadway.
Plaza.
36 Queensboro Plaza. That is a copy. Your next callback will be your next stop, Lexington 59.
Copy.
Quincy calling at 14th Street, Union Square.
1940 Quincy, Union Square. That is a copy. Next callback will be your next stop, Canal Row 11.
I was from Canal Row 11.
$1942 at Broadway.
1942 Nancy Broadway. That is a copy. Your next callback, Queensboro Plaza.
Copy.
1930 overshot by one pair of doors.
1930 Whiskey, what station?
49.
30 Whiskey, 49th Street. That is a copy. Key out the doors. That is a warning. Proceed to Times Square. Max speed 15 miles per hour.
That's copy.
1948 Quincy calling in for a radio check.
248 Quincy, radio check is loud and clear.
Copy, copy.
Whiskey, you make depart Astoria, Ditmars, your next callback will be Broadway. 1948 Quincy, are you ready to depart 57th Street, 7th Avenue?
48 Quincy, ready to depart.
That's a copy. 48 Quincy, may depart, your next callback is your next stop, Times Square, 42nd.
Copy.
Iron back at Lex Trap 9.
36 Whiskey, Lexus 59th, that is a copy, your next callback will be Times Square, 42nd.
Copy.
1930 calling in at Times Square.
Times Square, 42nd, that is a copy, may resume normal speed, push for local lineup, your next callback is Union Square.
Copy for Union.
Now lower level for the 1940 Quincy, that is a copy. Push forward, the Nancy line of your next callback will be decob interlocking.
Copy. .42 Nancy at Queensboro.
1942 Nancy, Queensboro Plaza, as a copy, your next callback, next stop, Lexington 59th.
Copy, Lex.
For November, from Astoria and Mars to Coney Island, calling in for a radio check.
54 Nancy, radio check loud and clear.
Copy that.
48 Quincy, Times Square.
48 Quincy, Times Square, that is a copy, push to the express line, your next callback, 14th Street, Union Square.
14th Union, copy.
.48 Whiskey Broadway, as a copy, your next callback will be Queensboro Plaza.
14th Street Union Square for the 1930.
1030 Whiskey at Union Square, that is a copy you're holding connection with the 48 Quincy.
Copy.
This is the 1942 Nancy at Lexington Condan.
Thirty-six is at Times Square.
1942 Nancy Lexington 59th, that is a copy. Your next callback will be Times Square 42nd. 1936 Whiskey at Times Square 42nd. Your next callback 14th Street Union Square.
Copy.
1940 Quincy calling decal interlock.
Quincy decal interlocking, that is a copy. Your next callback is Atlantic Avenue Pacific Street.
Copy.
1948 Quincy Union Square, doors open.
48 Quincy Union Square, that is a copy connection south with the 30 Whiskey. Both trains you may close down when ready. 48 Quincy, your next callback is Canal Lower Level. 30 Whiskey, your next callback is Prince Street.
1954 Nancy, crossing lineup out of the story at Detmars.
1954 Nancy, depart story at Ditmars, the next callback is Broadway.
Copy for Broadway.
Whiskey, Queensboro Plaza, that is a copy. Your next callback is your next stop, Lexington 59. Quincy, ready to depart 57th Street, 7th Avenue.
Yeah. Yes.
56 Quincy, that is your top of the depart. Your next callback is your next stop, Times Square 42nd.
Copy for times.
Prince Street, connect Prince Street, god damn it, for the 1930.
1930 Whiskey at Prince Street, that is a copy. Push for the tunnel line of your next callback will be Rector Street.
Copy for Rector Street.
1948 Whiskey, Lexington 59th, that is a copy. Your next callback will be 49th Street.
Canal lower level for the 48 Quincy.
1948 Quincy Canal lower level, that is a copy. Push for Nancy line of your next callback is decal interlocking.
Copy.
Uh, 56 Quincy's Times Square.
56 Quincy at Times Square, that is a copy for the express line. Your next callback will be 14th Street, Union Square.
Copy for Union.
$1954 Nancy calling in at Broadway.
1954 Nancy Broadway, that is a copy. Your next callback will be Queensboro Plaza.
Copy for Queensboro Plaza.
This is the 1942 Nancy, Times Square.
42 Nancy, Times Square, 42nd, that is a copy. Please hold. There's a Quincy crossing in front of you on the express track.
Copy.
14th Street Union Square for 36.
36 Whiskey, 14th Street, Union Square, that is a copy. Your next callback will be Prince Street.
Copy.
Nineteen 40 Quincy calling in at Atlantic Avenue, Pacific Street.
40 Quincy, Atlantic Pacific, that is a copy. Your next callback will be your next stop, 36th Street.
Copy.
Herald Square is clear.
$1956 Quincy, your callback was Union Square, by the way.
No, I know, I'm just letting you know it's clear.
Our copy. 1942 Nancy, I don't know if you heard me, but you can push for the express line and proceed to 34th. 1948 Whiskey at 49th Street, that is a copy. Your next callback will be 34th Street, Herald Square.
Yeah, 56 Quincy calling back at the 14th Street Union Square.
Union Square, that is a copy. Your next callback will be your next stop, Canal, lower level.
Copy now, lower level.
Prince Street.
Prince Street for the 1936 Whiskey, that is a copy. Push for the tunnel line. Your next callback will be Rector Street.
Copy.
48 at the call interlocking.
Once you decal interlocking, that is a copy. Your next callback will be Atlantic Avenue, Pacific Street.
And 4.
$1942 Nancy, 34th Street.
42 Nancy at Herald Square, that is a copy. You were holding for connection with the 48 Whiskey.
Copy.
48 Whiskey, 34th Street, Herald Square, perfect. Connection stops with the 42 Nancy. Both trains, you may close down when ready. Your next callback, both 14th Street, Union Square.
Copy 14.
1930 Coleman at Rector Street made a perfect stop.
Here at Rector, that is the copy. Your next callback is Whitehall, your next stop.
Copy for Whitehall.
1954 Nancy calling in at Queensboro Plaza.
For Nancy Queensboro, that is a copy. Your next callback is next stop, Lex 59.
Copy for next stop.
Sixth Street, 1940 Quincy.
36th Street, 4th Avenue, that is a copy. Push for West End line of your next callback, which next stop, 9th Avenue.
Copy from
1930 is at Whitewall.
Oh, that is a copy. Your next callback will be Depot Avenue.
Copy for Depot.
This is the 1942 Nancy 14.
Quincy Nancy at Union Square, that is a copy. Your next callback will be Canal Street, lower level.
Copy.
Yeah. 56 Quincy is Canal level.
This is Quincy Canal, lower level, that is a copy for Nancy line of your next callback, Peak of the Bridge.
Copy for Peak of the Bridge.
1548 Whiskey at Union Square, that is a copy. Your next callback, Prince Street.
Nevada at Line Markway.
Hey, Quincy, I'm going to that is a copy. Your next callback, next stop, 46th Street.
Copy.
$1954 Nancy calling in at Lex 59.
Nancy, I don't know if you're at your next callback, Times Square.
Copy for Times Square.
Rector Street.
36 Whiskey at Rector, that is the copy. Your next callback will be J Street Metro Tech.
Copy that.
38 Whiskey at Prince Street, that is a copy. Push the tunnel line. Your next callback is Rector Street.
Ninth Avenue, 1940 Quincy.
240 Quincy 9th Avenue, there's a copy. Next callback, 62nd Street.
Up for 62nd Street.
1942 Nancy Canal Street.
To Nancy Canal, that is a copy. Your next callback is Peak of the Bridge. Push for Nancy lineup.
Copy.
36 is a little past the top of the bridge. I was on the phone call, my bad.
6 Quincy, that is a copy. Your next callback is decal interlocking.
Guy for the interlocking.
Decalled Avenue for the 1930.
30 Whiskey,
Decal.
decal, that is a cop. Push for 4th Avenue local lineup. Your next callback will be 4th Avenue, 9th Street.
Copy.
Decal interlocking for the 1956 Quincy. Your next callback is Atlantic Pacific.
Guy for landing.
Towards your Nancy Peak of the bridge, that is a copy. Your next callback, decal interlocking.
Alright, 36th Street for the 48 Quincy.
Quincy 36, that is a copy. Push for West End lineup. Your next callback is your next stop, 9th Avenue.
Copy.
48 Whiskey, a Rector, that is a copy. Your next callback will be J Street Metro Tech.
J Street, Metro Tech.
.36 Whiskey, J Street Metro Tech, that is a copy for 4th Avenue local lineup. Your next callback, Atlantic Pacific.
Copy.
$1942 Nancy at decab interlocking.
2 Nancy, decal interlocking, that is a copy. Your next callback is Atlantic Pacific.
Copy.
1954 Nancy calling in at Times Square 42nd, punching for Broadway Express.
54 Nancy, Times Square, that is a copy. Your next callback, 14th Street, Union Square.
Copy, Union Square.
Quincy 62nd Street.
The Quincy 62nd, that is a copy. Your next callback is Bay Parkway.
Copy for Bay Parkway.
42 Nancy will be your callback. Hold outside of Atlantic and further north. Yes, call. You're back. 56 Quincy, that is a copy for Atlantic. Your next callback 36.
It's 9 for 48.
It's 48 Quincy at 9th Avenue. Your next callback 62nd Street.
And 4.
Atlantic's clear.
Copy that 56. Two Nancy, disregard the hold outside of the station. You can proceed inside Atlantic. You're going to hold when you have doors open at the station.
I'm back at Atlantic Barclays, local track.
36 Whiskey Atlantic Pacific, that is a copy. You are holding for connection with the 42 Nancy.
Copy that.
38 Whiskey, J Street Metro Tech, 4th Avenue, local line. Your next callback is your next stop, DeKalb Avenue.
$1930 calling in at 4th Avenue, 9th Street.
9th Street for the 1930 Whiskey, that is a copy. Your next callback 36th Street.
Copy.
Your Whiskey DeKalb, that is a copy. Please hold as a train from will be holding in Atlantic for connection.
$1942 Nancy at Atlantic Avenue.
Atlantic Pacific for the 1942 Nancy has a copy. Connects established with the 1936 Whiskey. 1936 Whiskey, you may close down. Your next callback will be 4th Avenue, 9th Street. 1942 Nancy, you can close down. Your next callback hold outside of 36th Street till further notice.
Holding outside 36.
1948 Whiskey, you may proceed out of DeKalb. Your next callback's Atlantic.
1954 Nancy calling in at 14th Street Union Square.
54 Nancy at Union Square, that is a copy. Your next callback Canal lower level.
Copy of Canal Street.
1948 Whiskey, your callback's Atlantic, not 9th Street.
Quincy is at 36th Street.
6 Quincy 36, that is a copy for the west end line of your next callback. That is your next stop, 9th Avenue.
Go for 9th Avenue.
Your 2 Nancy, disregard the hold outside of 36. You are clear in the 36th Street. Whiskey Atlantic Avenue, that is a copy. Please hold. You're directly behind the 36 Whiskey right now.
29th Street.
That is a copy. Your next callback will be 25th Street.
Copy.
Bay Parkway, 1940 Quincy.
1948 Whiskey, holding at Atlantic, you may proceed. Next callback is 4th Avenue, 9th Street.
1930 Whiskey's at 36.
1940 Quincy, Bay Parkway, that is a copy. Push for the Stowell Avenue lineup. Your next callback is Bay 50th Street.
Copy for Bay 50th Street.
1930 Whiskey,
Expense.
1930 Whiskey, 36th Street, that is a copy. Your holder connects with the 42 Nancy.
Copy.
1948 Quincy, 62nd, your next callback is Bay Parkway.
Copy.
1954 Nancy, Coney and Canal Street, lower level, punching for the Nancy lineup.
Before Nancy Canal, that is a copy. Your next callback is DeKalb Interlocking.
Copy for the interlocking.
.48 Whiskey, I said you can proceed to 4th Avenue, 9th Street.
This is the
56
1942 Nancy, 36th Street.
1942 Nancy 36 has a copy connection established with the 30 Whiskey. Both trains can push for 4th Avenue lineup, and both your next callbacks are 59th Street, 4th Avenue.
Copy 59.
56 Quincy calling back at 9th Avenue.
9th Avenue for the 1956 Quincy, that is a copy. Your next callback will be 62nd Street.
Can I do a U-turn at 38 yard?
Why?
No reason. The tour.
62nd. Go with 62nd.
Copy.
On 5th Street.
25th Street, that is a copy. Your next callback will be 53rd Street.
Copy.
Bay 50th Street, next 40 Quincy.
Bay 50th, that is a copy. Your next callback is your next and last stop, Coney Island, Stowell.
Copy for Stowell Avenue, Mitch.
.48 Whiskey, 4th Avenue, 9th Street, that is a copy. Your next callback is 36th Street.
Listen to 1942 Nancy at 59th.
42 Nancy, 59th Street, that is a copy. Push for Sea Beach Express lineup. Let me know when you have doors open at the 10 platform at 8th Avenue.
Copy to 8th Avenue.
1954 Nancy calling in at decal interlocking.
On 1954 Nancy, that is a copy. Your next callback will be Atlantic Pacific.
Copy for Atlantic.
Calling in at 59th Street.
30 Whiskey, 59th Street, 4th Avenue. That is a compliment for Bay Ridge line. If your next callback is your last stop, Bay Ridge 95th.
Copy.
This is the 1942 Nancy 8th Avenue temp.
42 Nancy, 8th Avenue temp. That is a copy. Your next callback, Bay Parkway temp.
Copy, Bay Parkway.
Calling back at 53rd Street.
53rd Street. That is a copy. Your next callback will be 77th Street. Six Whiskey, 77.
56 Quincy is at 62nd.
6 Quincy, 62nd out of the copy. Your next callback is Bay Parkway.
Comfort Bay.
48 Whiskey, 36. Your next callback is 59th Street.
1940 Quincy terminated at Coney Island Stillwell.
40 Quincy, Coney Island, Stillwell. That is a copy. You can discharge your passengers. Terminate your train. Thank you for your service. Have a good night.
1948 at Bay Parkway.
Quincy, Bay Parkway. That is a copy from Stillwell Avenue. My next callback is Bay 50th.
1954 Nancy calling in Atlantic Pacific.
On 54 Nancy, Atlantic, that is a copy. Your next callback will be 59th Street.
Copy for 59th Street.
Whiskey, I'm changing your callback. Callback at hold at 53rd Street so further notice while we get the situation with the 36 Whiskey figured out. Okay, 48 Whiskey, please hold there. Thank you.
this is the 21. This is the 1942 Nancy Bay Parkway.
842 Nancy Bay Parkway 10th. That is a copy. Your next callback will be your last stop, Coney Island, Stillwell.
Copy for Stillwell.
15th Street, 48 Quincy.
850 1948 Quincy. That is a copy. Your next callback to your next and last stop, Coney Island, Stillwell. 36 Whiskey, please advise when you reload. There's a train rolling behind you at 53rd Street.
Baylor to 95th Street for the 1930.
Whiskey Bear to 95th. That is a copy. You may discharge your passengers. Terminate your train. Thanks for your service. Have a good night.
Thank you. Burrito, finish the mod sheet. I can't do it.
Hey, 36 Whiskey, that is a copy. Your next callback is your last stop, Baylor to 95th. 9248 Whiskey, thank you for your patience. Your next callback will be 77th Street.
Quincy is calling back Bay Parkway.
That is a copy. Push for still alive in the line for next callback. Bay 50th Street.
Copy for Bay 50.
For Stillwell Island, Coney Island, Stillwell Avenue.
Okay, 48 Quincy, Stillwell Island. Sure, go ahead. Discharge your passengers. Terminate your train. Thank you for your service. Have a good day.
Copy to ignore that.
Nancy, calling in at 59th Street, 4th Avenue, punching for Sea Beach Express.
Before Nancy, that is a car 59th Street, 4th Avenue. Let me know when you have doors open at the temporary platform at Bay Parkway.
Copy, Bay Parkway.
48 Whiskey, 77th Street, that is a copy with full line to your last stop, area to 95th.
Fifty-six Quincy's calling back at Bay 50th.
56 Quincy, Bay 50th, that is a copy. Next callback, your next and last stop, Coney Island, Stillwell.
Count for Coney.
1942 Nancy Coney and Stillwell.
1942 Nancy, Coney Island, Stillwell, that is a copy. You may discharge your passengers. Terminate your train. Thank you for your service. Have a good night.